It's the Real Estate Podcast, brought to you by ANZ Home Loans for financial well-beings.
Hey, welcome back to the Real Estate Breakfast on another weekend that has dropped. It's real estate all the way with our non-stop suburb-by-suburb property information, breaking down the numbers and the trends every morning for the Australian real estate market. On the global front, a lot has happened, hasn't it, over the last week? We've had the bombing of Iran, the claim that Iran's nuclear program was obliterated by Trump. Then, no, it wasn't. Then Trump says, yes, he believed that it was. Bombs falling on Israel and Iran. And then Trump may be changing his view about supporting Ukraine a little bit more. So a crazy, crazy week. And then we've got the Aussie property market in the middle of that to talk about on the Saturday morning, June the 28th. Got another email that has come through. This time it's a good morning to you, Kaylee in Bondi. Now, you've written in saying that you heard us talking about a listener last week who had given up on saving up for a deposit because they couldn't get there. You're in the same position, late 20s, and even something like a studio, you say, is a non-option. It's a non-starter. You can't move because of your work, so you say that you are stuck. You would consider possibly going in with a couple of people to buy a property, but you are a private person. Gee, everything's working against you here, Kaylee, isn't it? And you do like your own space. You feel squeezed in with your limited options. Yes, nothing worse than a lack of options. Now, whilst you say that your job is there in Sydney, I would do the counter-argument with yourself. If you moved into one of the regional areas and even took a pay cut, would you consider that to get onto the property ladder? Maybe that is worth considering. And one of those regions could be in Queensland, in Hervey Bay, which is where we take you right now. And it's a very good morning to Scott Mitchell from Mitchell's Realty. And Scott, what would a studio budget buy for Kaylee there in Bondi if she decided to move into the beautiful Fraser Coast?
Yeah, good morning, Craig, and good morning, Kaylee. Yeah, look, certainly I can only but imagine the cost of a studio unit in Bondi, but you can still buy a really nice, like a 2-bedroom unit with some floor space, 1 or 2 blocks from our beautiful Esplanade and Beach for under $500,000. 400 to 450 if you look and act quickly when one comes up. So we would certainly be more affordable. There's still plenty of job opportunities across Hervey Bay, particularly if you're going to look at anything to do with the medical services. Medical and health is still our largest employment driver across the Fraser Coast. Then maybe it's time to just look at other options and you'll get to live in beautiful Hervey Bay at the same time.
Yes, because I would imagine that there would be a number of people moving into the Fraser Coast that would take pay cuts because the counterbalance to what that argument is far greater perhaps to get onto the property ladder.
When you get to a point where it's just completely unaffordable, why would you want to try and endure a lifestyle around that when you can move regionally and maybe have a bit of a fresh start, I reckon. Connections, if you've got family and friends down in Sydney, Qantas now and Jetstar, both of our 2 providers, are increasing their flights. So we've got 4 flights a week directly between Hervey Bay and Sydney, and then they've increased it now to 3 flights a week between Hervey Bay and Melbourne. So that's with Jetstar. So we've got almost daily flights connecting us with Melbourne and Sydney. And Qantas have just actually reinstated their early morning flights for those business commutes to Brisbane. So we've got 3 to 4 flights a day with the Qantas link between Hervey Bay and Brisbane. So Hervey Bay is really well connected to our capital cities. So there might be another option there where you could even work a little bit FIFO, where you might do a certain period on and then come back to enjoy your time off in beautiful Hervey Bay.
That is one of the problems with some of the regions, that connectivity just isn't there. And as you say, Sydney and Melbourne, it's all very, very connected. It's quite interesting just to have a look at the seats. 38,000 low-fare seats, they are saying, annually. And that does make a huge difference. So what did the Fraser Coast Regional Council play, do you think, in helping to secure these new and reinstated flight routes?
They've certainly communicated directly with the management under Qantas and Jetstar to ensure that we have secured and maintained these flights. They work really actively around Fraser Coast tourism and events to promote our natural assets, and we're coming into our peak whale watching season, which really kicks off in earnest next month. Our whales will be in building numbers all the way through until October from July. And we are the whale watching capital of Australia, if not the world, some would say. So if you haven't come up to experience our whales, you should make this year the year to do it with these connecting flights between Sydney and Melbourne and Brisbane. We're lucky to have these flights, and it's certainly driving our local market as well. There's a lot more people that are taking advantage of our connectivity, and they can either commute back and forth for work, or they're just choosing to live and enjoy our lifestyle.
Yes, that whale watching, if you have not done the whale watching from somebody that has, I can thoroughly recommend it. We had a fantastic encounter with a couple of juveniles that came up alongside, and we thought that was going to be the end of it, and then comes the mama, and boy, are those whales big. Now let's have a look at some of the trends and the market growth here in Hervey Bay, because we've seen Hervey Bay's median house price, which I'll get you to talk about. It has risen to $737,000 and change, and a 71% growth, Scott, since 2021.
We are still the fastest growing region in Queensland, and we've had exceptional growth. These connecting flights will continue to drive that buyer demand into our region, and our growth is still continuing to climb. That 71% came off such a low base, and when compared to areas south of us, as we've discussed in the past, like Sunshine Coast, Gold Coast and Brisbane, we're still more affordable. So there's still a great opportunity to get into our market, and whilst that $737,500 they're suggesting is like the new medium house price, you can still buy a reasonable quality home across Hervey Bay for under $650,000. So you've just got to look around and make sure you're in a position to purchase and act quickly. It does feel like our market is about to step up again. My forecast or crystal ball's telling me that we're most likely going to see another interest rate reduction next month, and that's only going to stimulate our market going into the spring selling season.
And we are talking to Scott there on the Fraser Coast in Hervey Bay. We'll talk more about this golden location after this.
Every morning from 6 a.m, we bring you the latest real estate news with diverse perspectives from leading industry experts. We deliver the most property podcasts across Australia every week.
Have you guys done any sort of modelling with regard to what that might do to the real estate industry? Because even if Trump decided today to change things, by the time that all goes back to some sort of normality, it's going to stuff the economy for some time.
Yeah, I mean, the good thing for Australia is that the US makes up very little of our overall export market, about 6% of exports. But it will affect our major trading partners, which is probably more where there could be an impact on the Australian economy. For the real estate market, though, we don't expect too much of an impact, just because you have the massive tailwind of economic uncertainty increasing the likelihood of lower interest rates. And at the end of the day, that's one of the most powerful short-term influences on the property market.
From the emotion of property, the economic inflation, managing your expectations, lack of stock, price growth, construction appetite, days on the market. Stay informed with us and know your property.
And it is a weekend of real estate on our Saturday morning, and we are in Hervey Bay talking to Scott, giving us the latest on the median house prices. Now, I just want to ask you, Scott, at the current median price, first home buyers may be just under the $750,000 grant threshold. So for 2025, how realistic is it for them to enter the market, do you think, at the moment?
Well, they're certainly going to need to act quickly because the values across Hervey Bay certainly don't look as though they're going to moderate in the foreseeable future. But again, there are opportunities to still buy into this market, even for a brand new house and land package. Not a lot below, but below that 737,500 median price as suggested by the latest Heron Todd White month in review report. Certainly talk to your broker or financier and work out what is your borrowing capacity. Make sure you fully understand how much you can access funding-wise. Work towards a pre-approval is the ideal scenario from there, and then actively find that property and pounce on it as soon as you can find one that you can afford, because the market doesn't look like it's going to go backwards in the foreseeable future.
Yes, and if you have a look at the units, they have shown slower growth, but villas and townhouses seem to be the standout performers. Now, the 515,000 median unit price, yes, that is the median price, but you can buy units for under 500k, as Scott has mentioned, but they have been rising steadily. A question here, though, do you expect boutique higher-end unit developments to push that even further for this year?
We haven't had any new major development buildings coming out of the ground in more than a decade in Hervey Bay. And right at the moment, there's at least 4, and we'll call them boutique, but they are going to be high-end unit developments on the Esplanade being built now. And obviously we've had the approval put through for the Sheraton. It is still working through its approval process at this stage. I feel as though with these current developments coming out of the ground, and they are all quality developments, we're finally going to see some renewed high-end quality unit complexes built across Hervey Bay, and that'll new opportunities for people looking to get into the market. And I suggest the quicker you do that, the better you'll be off.
Yes, because if you look at Hervey Bay's current trajectory, it could eventually mirror the boom cycles that we've seen in places like Byron Bay and also the Sunshine Coast. Just a quick mention here with regard to land prices, they have dipped slightly in Hervey Bay, just over 300 grand recently. So, you know, they're still there. You know, if you look at normal prices, not too bad.
It is, and that's for a block that'll be around that 500 to 600 square metres as well. I was recently looking at some blocks on the Sunshine Coast in the Aura estate, and those blocks were 300 to 400 metres, and they were $700,000 starting price.
Yeah.
So that makes Hervey Bay look pretty good.
There's the price comparison right there. Double. All right, Scott, we'll wind it up there. Enjoy your weekend on the Fraser Coast there in Hervey Bay, and look forward to talking again soon.
There's fantastic, Craig. Look forward to catching up next month. Thanks, mate.
Explore new property destinations where you could live with exclusive interviews covering real estate news and market insights.
I guess the first thing to think about before you decide whether tiny house living will work for you is looking at your own life and also thinking about what's important to you in terms of how you want to spend your time, spend more time with family, do the kind of creative work that I want to do.
If you don't have a mortgage, for example, you don't have this huge financial noose around your neck. You can take less work, spend less time working because you don't have all of that pressure.
I think you're right on the money, Craig. I think that's one of the main benefits for me, that I could never service a mortgage on a freelance writer's income, and it would have just stressed me out trying to do that. I think, I'm probably paying a third of the rent that I would be paying if I was renting even a studio apartment. In the northern New South Wales, rents here are really crazy. Some of them are comparable to capital cities now, and even a room in a share house, I saw one advertised the other day, it was like $400 for just a room in a house.
We connect you to the best real estate information across Australia. The Real Estate Podcast.